and you are the director of the Mental Health Institute. So you deal a lot with people coming in and having a bad day, having a bad month, having a bad year, and they're depressed. Is this right?
That is very right. And again, I really have to thank you, Eddie, for bringing up these topics. These are real issues that people have to go through every single day. And actually, the Quran makes it very clear that by the mere fact that we are humans, we are going to face challenges in our lives. We don't get to choose the timing of the challenge. We don't get to choose the nature of the challenge or where it may happen. But the fact remains, and that is, we will face some challenge in our lives. That challenge may be us, our wealth, our health. It may be our loved ones, those who are around us. And again, with these challenges, it's not just the loss, but also it is the impact that the loss may have upon us. And like you said, depression just happens to be one of these challenges that may face us as humans. Now, keep in mind that depression is not necessarily a character weakness. People would deem depression to be, come on, just trying, to shake people out of it, and they would give you that pep talk. When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yeah.
Or hard times don't last, but tough people do. Well, these are beautiful words, but they really do not eliminate depression. So depression is not seen as a personal weakness of the individual. So please, if you know anybody that is depressed out there, make sure that you do not attribute depression to their weakness, because it's not. Depression also is not the result of weak faith. And that is something that we hear amongst religious groups, and that is, oh, the person's faith in God is not that strong. That is why they are depressed. And that is not real. What it really is that at this point, the pain that you are going through is so overwhelming, and you do not have enough tools to deal with the pain. So you go into depression. That's basically, in simple words, that is really what it means. So appreciate that you bringing up this topic, but it's also very important that we know how to characterize it the right way, so that we become a source of empowerment to those who are around us, rather than a source of depression to those who are already depressed. So I really appreciate you bringing up this topic. Not only that, but also this idea that religious people are not necessarily what we call inherently protected from becoming depressed simply because they are religious. Reality is depression is something that it crosses all bounds and all socioeconomic, ethnic, religious. None of that matters. We're all prone to it. Now, what Islam promises is this: Islam does not say that because you are a Muslim you will never be depressed. Islam says that because you are a Muslim, you have access to the tools that Islam gives you. If you're depressed, it will prevent you from going into despair. So religion prevents despair. It does not prevent, inherently, it does not prevent depression.
That's a key right there. So being depressed is a part of the natural just consequence of being a human being?
And not only that, but if we are not depressed, there is really something wrong. I mean, chances are we will be depressed someday. It will be a minor depression, it may be major depression, but definitely we will have the blues, where we'll have one day we're just not feeling well, we're down. So that is human, and we embrace this. We don't try to rush ourselves out of it. But remember, it's not depression that bothers us. It is the consequences of depression. How people choose to cope with depression, what people and who people become as a result of depression, that is really the challenge.
Now, you also said after depression, this way of life, it will keep you from going into despair?
Right.
Because what happens when you go into despair then?
That's when people go into suicide. That is, people won't go on to, it's not worth living anymore. That is when people literally give up, and they give up on life. That is dangerous. So that is where we come in with the tools that Islam says that we have, so that it prevents that. I'll just give you an example. Eddie, did you know that every 15 minutes in the US, somebody takes away their own life?
Every 15 minutes?
Every 15 minutes. That is 90 people a day. That is 34,000 people every year they die because of suicide.
Falling in despair now.
Yes, not only that, Eddie, but it is the third leading cause for people between the ages of 18 and 45, and is the second leading cause of death for college students. We're talking about a serious, serious problem here. It's not just the depression that is serious, it is the consequences, how people cope and how people deal with depression that is problematic. People who go into alcohol thinking that this is going to make them, forget about their problems. That is something that started with depression, but now the coping mechanism, the coping skills that the person has acquired are so poor that depression is no longer the problem, it is the way that they're dealing with depression. People who go into smoking, especially nowadays, smoking pot is so unbelievably popular because that is the only way that a person has learned how to cope with their depression. And that is really sad. So what we're after here is to be depressed is human. To go into despair is unacceptable. So it is helping the individuals who are going through these tough times, deal with the depression, getting out of it, but at the same time, we don't want them to go into despair as well.
Usually, like when you get hurt, okay, you get a Band-Aid on the scar, it takes a few days, maybe a week, you broke a bone, it takes a little bit longer, but the emotional scars sometimes can take even longer than the physical scars. But is there, you being an expert in this area, is there approximately about a time if you, in a way, these tools you mentioned, that if you deal with it, it maybe take a month, 6 months, how long does it, or is there even such a thing that approximately you'll feel this depression, emptiness, and before it goes away?
Yeah. Well, a person is considered to be clinically depressed if they have had 6 of 9 symptoms. And just very quickly, feeling fatigue, a sense of hopelessness, losing interest, seeking isolation, thinking about death, a person not finding pleasure in pleasurable things that they have done in the past, a person feeling down most of the day, very little tolerance for irritants, the whole idea of feeling down. So if you have had this for 2 weeks, then you are considered to be clinically depressed. Now, this is not considering that a major life-changing event has taken place. People getting divorced, a loved one dying, then we would expect that naturally it would take us some time to heal. But if you are depressed and you have been there for a while, then 2 weeks would be, anything less than 2 weeks would be normal. More than 2 weeks, it would be clinically, you are defined as clinically depressed.